Lisa,
Yes, baby girl.
when I grow up, I want to be a WOMENACE to society.
And so shall you be.
Hey, this is Lisa Landry. Welcome back to WOMENACE to Society. I'm so happy today to be speaking to my guest, Lisa Jo Outlaw. What kind of awesome name is that? Hey, Lisa Jo.
Hi.
I love your name. It's like you were going to be an artist from the moment you were conceived with a name like Outlaw.
Or something, or an outlaw.
Well, aren't all artists outlaws, like the real ones?
I think that's true. I mean, 'cause I think it's about how you live your life, not just what you make. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, and
I'll take it.
you're living in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Like when I think about artists, I don't necessarily think Arkansas.
Right. Well, we're kind of an anomaly here. It's actually a pretty artistic community.
Wait, is that
Yeah.
because of you? I know that you've started. I know you've started the little village. I know you're doing outreach to the kids, basically, is what you're doing there, besides other things.
Yeah, I'm a freelance teacher on the side. We do some enrichment programs to kind of help kids develop themselves so that however they want to live their life in an artistic way or otherwise, that's up to them. We kind of give them a little space to feel like real citizens, to take them seriously and listen to what they have to say. And then the program is kind of kid directed, really. I mean, I kind of, like I said, I'm the driver. I drive the car, but we decide together, what we want to go do or what the summer program theme is going to be or whatever. Along with our partnerships, we have some pretty great people in the community that we work with. Tricycle Farms is one. Compassion Fayetteville that kind of keeps us grounded and gives us some ideas for stewardship and ways that the kids can participate and feel like this town really is theirs. We use the library, but how to use the library, not just go there to play on the computers, how to find things.
Are you teaching them Dewey Decimal? Is that, or
Oh,
just,
yeah, we do that. Well, it's just about how to find your way. So, yes, definitely. That's an intro to that for sure.
that's beautiful, how to find your way. And I'm looking, your Little Fayette Village on Facebook is where you can be found.
Yeah.
And what is stewardship? That's a big word for me. I know you're Arkansas,
Well,
I'm Louisiana. So what is that big word?
well, I think of it as, kind of giving back or taking care of something. When you're a steward of our community, for example, is what we talk about with the kids. It's about, we don't just go and play at our favorite park. We also go and we make sure to pick up trash when we're there, to feel ownership. If we see somebody, and this is, I love that the kids do it. I don't even have to talk half the time. But the children will see somebody pulling on a tree that's got a weak branch, and it's fun to jump on, but we know it's hurting the tree. And so the kids will go over and say, hey, maybe you should climb up over here or on this side, or do you notice that you're hurting the tree? So just taking care of our space is what I think stewardship is when we talk about it with the kids.
And kids are pretty open to that kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of children are sensitive about the needs of more vulnerable beings.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I think that children truly are one of those groups that it is so easy to write them off. We talk about ageism, and we know what we mean when we're talking about older folks, seniors, but kids that are young. I have a feeling that's why a lot of kids act out. We think of kids as being brats, and I know of several, don't get me wrong. We see that, but it's also all of us are a product of our environment. And so when they're taken seriously, it lets them step up to something. You give them space to do it, and they do it. They encourage each other, so it's not an adult telling them down to hurry up and go do something. It's their kids, it's other friends, their peers that are saying, hey, this is how we do it. Here's what we're capable of. And they feel capable, and they act capable. It's really cool to see. I mean, when the magic happens, when you give them that space and we're at the park and I see them on their own go and help a friend or see a stranger, even like a stranger kid. We don't talk to adults.
Yeah, right. Let's be specific.
That's still a role. That's still a thing. But going and helping other kids. If they see somebody that's fallen down, they'll just go over and we know first aid because we learned that at the farm. We know first aid. We can use natural herbs to come over and put some plantain on your alley. I don't know. It's just nice to have that kind of sense of community even among the kids because they are part of the community and they're often forgotten. People love to talk about how kids can't or kids are so loud, rude, dirty. They're dirty, but that's not a bad thing. More adults should be dirty.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I think people need to be in the dirt more than we are.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And I mean that metaphorically and physically.
How are you perceived in the community as an artist? I grew up in the Deep South. There is a respect for people who create, but at the same time, there's a
Stigma?
depreciation. Yeah,
Is it like that?
yeah, it's just
Or
like, oh, she's doing that. She's one of them. She doesn't have a real job. She's over there playing with her paints and her
and for
materials.
kids, right? Sure.
And that's in big cities too. I don't mean to disrespect country folk, but it seems even more prevalent in smaller communities where you're the outsider, you're the weirdo. Why are you doing that?
Right. Well, I think we're fortunate to live in a town like Fayetteville. There's a little saying around here that says, keep Fayetteville weird. We're like a little mini Austin in that it's always been a bed of creativity. There have been colleges here since before the Civil War. And so we're kind of fortunate to be here. But even as we're growing, part of the growth is economic. Well, art is not one of those things that fits into that economy. And so it is easy to kind of be stigmatized as somebody that thinks weird or that, and not in a good way, if you're not making money. And as a class of people, artists are often also written off,
Yeah.
Oh, they're just silly. They're hard to get along with. They're
Immature.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I don't know that they're wrong. It's just that I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing all the time. We don't need more people who think the same way everybody else thinks. And that's where I think there's a big overlap with what I do, where, allowing people to be who they are, allowing the kids to be kids and recognizing and appreciating that. So in the art scene, or through that lens, I feel like it's a similar thing. Fayetteville happens to have a lot of amazing artists and creative thinkers. I feel like there is a stigma about why art isn't important. I mean, we see it in the school systems. We see how it's been erased and removed from curricula at schools across the country. And Arkansas does not have strong numbers as far as the public school system goes. I think we're probably, for that reason, even climbing a higher hill or a steeper hill. Metaphors are also not my forte, right? Fayetteville is kind of it's kind of at the south part of this corridor. At the very northern part is Bentonville, which is the headquarters
Walmart.
for Walmart. Oh, yeah. And that is, truly right here in Northwest Arkansas is the only place on the planet you can shop at Walmart and say you're shopping local. You know what I'm saying? And that is weird. And I got to say that in Fayetteville, there are a lot of people who don't. And so that's a little different than even the rest of the corridor.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that Fayetteville locals don't really go down to the Walmart, which would actually be local, whereas the rest of us want to support local, but we don't have options because Walmart took over the entire marketplace?
Right. I think that's definitely true. I mean, we have a few, have some local grocery stores, but I mean, Walmart down here has grocery stores too. Mm-hmm. So and the banks here, some of the banks, at least one in particular I can think of, is owned by Walmart. And so sometimes it's just so in the ether or in the water that we just don't think about it. You don't have to. If you're going to the store, you go to Walmart. Or if you say Walmart, you mean it generically. Like when you say Kleenex, you mean tissue.
Wow.
It's kind of like that. Yeah. So it really is. I mean, people don't have to think about it, but I know a lot of friends of mine and other people in town that have more of a conscience about it choose not to. If you have a choice, they don't. Some people don't, and especially in Fayetteville. You see that more here than other places. But in the towns in between Fayetteville and the Bentonville corridor, a lot of those folks work for companies that work for Walmart. So it drives our economy for sure. Mm-hmm. That said, some of that money is given back to the community in a way that other communities who are paying for Walmart don't get the benefits. So we have like a Walton Arts Center where it's a performing arts center. We get Broadway shows here, right here in Northwest Arkansas, because of the Walmart money. We have this new museum. It opened in 2011 called Crystal Bridges. It's world-class art. It's American art museum, and you can see really cool stuff. But I know, and some of my friends that are aware of it know that it's kind of on the backs of the rest of the world. It's at whose expense. So there's definitely some struggle with being an artist here that I think gives it some meaning. I don't know, in a different kind of way, because you could, but if you talk about selling out, do you want to show your stuff at Crystal Bridges? Well, not that art museum because it's Walmart money.
Yeah, but at the same time, like to play devil's advocate, isn't it all kind of Walmart money at this point? Like the whole dang country is pretty much corporate and you gotta give up a piece of your soul to be able to create something you want to share with other people. Or am I just being cynical?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's part of what all artists grapple with. It's unfortunate because artists are one of the few, and I think teachers are one too, one of the few occupations that have to consider that kind of stuff. We have to not just do what you do, which is make something and create. Give your time to do it, pay your material, pay for your materials, and then you have to market it, and then you have to sell it. Then you have to find a place to sell it first. There's all of this maintenance. There's not someone else to always manage it for you unless you get to a certain level. So because of how I guess the system is and what's already valued in that economic state that we're in, I think we're asking a lot of artists, but giving them none of the resources to do it,
And not
or
much
the respect
support.
of what that really means.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
no
definitely not
respect.
in my wheelhouse to have to do my own taxes, for example, when there are 4 forms I have to fill out just because I chose to do this kind of work. Doctors don't have to do that, and they have the resources to pay for an extra accountant.
Yeah, that's really true. Like there is a penalty for not being corporate.
Right, and back to your original question, though, about that grappling. So then there's also this ethical question about where do I want to sell my art, to whom, and this is probably an age-old question for a lot of artists. If you're doing a commission work in particular, somebody that wants you to do something that you don't agree with, or put it in a place that you don't support. There's a lot of soulfulness, and it's something that's really hard to measure, obviously, and that's probably why it's easy to overlook. But yeah, I think that's something that teachers and artists and lots of creative thinkers have to go through. A lot of professions that are unappreciated, underappreciated anyway.
Underappreciated, non-traditional. My college roommate is an artist, and I remember her being commissioned by a very huge music producer. And he hired her to come do a mural in his bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's this beautiful mural in someone's bathroom right now, commission. You know what I'm saying? Like you're basically, you are coming over here. You're getting a huge paycheck to create something for somebody who is a huge Emmy winner, and you are drawing faces where they poop.
Right. I have a friend whose art is hanging in our local co-op, and I remember seeing it, and I was like, but you have to go into the bathroom to see it. And it's just, but it's still, it's still being shown. It definitely gets seen.
Right?
You can go with
A
that
lot.
to a public place. I don't know about this music dude, how many people are pooping in his bathroom. But
There's a whole bunch of life-changing texts being sent from that powder room. A hookup here and there. There's a burrito incident. You don't know what's happening in the powder rooms, but that is the art of war, isn't it? There's the art of war, and then there's the war of art. And the war of art is just getting out there and making it happen every day and grinding it out, and then you hit a goal, and then you find out that your goal is not necessarily the same thing you aspired to.
Right. Well, that's the creative process. I mean, that's, I think, what it is already. You're going to make something, and life is like that, I think. You're going to make something, you're going to live, you're going to make your own choices, you're going to do what feels right at the moment. Well, if it's not tied to a socially accepted goal, like making money or getting to the next promotion or finding the right kind of partner, if it's not related to that, then it's almost invisible and therefore doesn't count. But you're absolutely right. I mean, making those kinds of choices to just do what you do, I feel like that's truly what it is to be a successful artist, because then you're not measuring yourself by how much money you make or what somebody else thinks is the right choice. It's just not the same path, and not all paths go straight.
That's true. And sometimes you think you're on a journey that you're really not on because you're on a parallel path.
Right. Well, sure. And that's what I mean by kind of invisible. It's like it's a parallel path, but it's your own personal path. And everybody, that's what I think there's a cosmic joke in that. Everybody thinks they're on the path of whoever's right next to them or whatever the society tells them. And that's the known path. But we're all on our own individual path. And if you're doing something what someone else is doing, that's the only way to know you're not on your own path.
Right, you're on their path.
Right. It can't be yours because
right.
Everybody's looks different.
Right. But we're all, I think we're encouraged from very young ages to be part of the status quo, to be part of the village, and measure your success is based on what your peers are accomplishing.
Right. Well, and even when you say the village, you think about that. We need a village doctor. We need a village, educator. We need a village cleaner upper. We need we need somebody to look out for all those things. Not everyone is supposed to just be the village doctor, and I feel like that's where it's forgotten. If it's really a true village, it's diversity. And I don't mean that in a, well, I guess I do mean it like that. I just mean that every, and it sounds,
well, it's all of it
now.
Yeah, it's all of it.
Every role is important.
Yeah, it's not just the color of your skin or your cultural heritage or your gender. It's all of it.
It's about what you really are. We need you to be who you are, is how I see it. And therefore, there's always a place for you. If our society would allow for it, there's a place for everybody. But we're trying to cram everybody into one kind of role and one kind of vision and one kind of expectation, or maybe three, but that's not near enough for infinite possibility, like there is infinite possibilities in humans. I just don't feel like it's designed to set up for one particular function, which doesn't really allow for a village. No longer a village, it's a machine.
Oh, that's beautiful, Lisa Jo.
Well, it's kind of sad and, and a little disgusting, but
well, it's patriarchy. Don't worry, the Civil War is going to wipe all that shit out. We got Civil War 2 coming. We're going to fix things.
Yeah, right. The unrest is rife.
Oh my gosh, it's out of control. I'm optimistic though about the reset. I really am.
Yeah, me too. I've always lived in college towns, and this is one of the reasons why I like being here. It's got all these different thoughts. Automatically, you've got diversity of ages. We've got college kids. There's the school system here actually for the rest of Arkansas comparatively is pretty good. And so you've got young people that are doing things that are activists because their parents are old hippies or for whatever reason. It's accepted more in this town than in other places in the country. Certainly than other places in Arkansas.
Yes, ma'am. I've been to Little Rock. Yes.
Yeah. Right. And so so knowing that there's room for that, I feel like I have a better sense of there's room for me here too, is what I guess I'm thinking, because it's not super culturally diverse. A lot of college towns aren't. It looks the same as many others. It's mostly white. It's a college town, so it's still academia. Mm-hmm. But the thoughts that are coming here, even if it's just philosophically open-minded, I'll take it. I'll take it over some of what you see in other places.
Right. It's a way in.
yeah, and it isn't just, obviously there are people that are really doing things, but it's a similar dynamic that you see where it's a lot of white people doing for and on behalf and speaking, for others.
Yeah, the outliers.
And yet it's better than none. It's like the abolitionists. I mean, you can go back in history and see lots of people doing things and for the right reasons and their hearts are in the right place, but at the same time, it's still there's still not room for everybody else. You know what I mean? And in this community, I think that's what came first. It just happens to be mostly white. And the people that want to do right are going to do what they think is right. But like all of us, we can only see through our own filter. So if it really is right, they wouldn't know it because they haven't asked anybody. There's nobody to ask.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Okay, now that sounds a little bit negative. I don't know.
No.
But I do mean it.
But no,
I
but
don't not mean it.
No, but that's
I just don't want it to sound negative.
No, but it's not negative. I would, I want to ask you, like, what is it? Because I've seen your pictures. We've never met. You seem like you're mixed race. I don't know if you have native indigenous folk in your blood. You have the cheekbones.
Well, like most people that have a black, mixed race, we don't know. That history's really gone to us.
Yeah.
And so we don't know. But that is where the outlaw comes from. I looked it up a long time ago. And it's from the old Robin Hood days of being an outlaw in that way outside of the law. But merrymen, the word merrymen, like Robin Hood and his, are synonymous. So merryman is a more common last name, but they mean the same thing in history. And so it dates back to there. My dad's side of the family is from Mississippi, and there are a lot of outlaws there, white ones, lots of white outlaws. And so there was a slave owner whose last name was Outlaw, probably from Old England, and that's where he got his name, but he gave it to a lot of his slaves. That's where we got it. It's interesting because I love to have that romantic vision of, the Old West and those old the Buffalo Soldiers, the black cowboys, which is a pretty cool history, but that's not where my outlaw comes from. So I reclaimed it. I made it my own outlaw. I'm an outlaw in my own right.
You're like, fuck it, this is my pirate ship.
Yeah, well, it's in the name. Whatever. It's right there. You have to.
It is a beautiful name.
I do like it, and it does have that romantic quality about, and it gives me permission, I think, in some ways. When I was a teenager, you're just an outlaw because you're breaking the law anyway. As I grew older, I thought, no, I want to break those kinds of laws too. The social expectations. What do you think I am? Watch me not be that. Whatever you are putting on me, I am so not that. So to be an artist is one of those ways. I work with kids, but I also am a nude model. That's right. I play tambourine on the side sometimes. I make art that is not even traditional kind of art. Some people would look at my stuff and say it's not art. That's okay. You can. Watch me. Sorry that your ideas are so narrow, but whatever.
Yeah, it's really sad how many of us are trapped in patterns that we think are normal, and they're really, truly not.
Yeah, and we don't question them because they're already ingrained, like about how you're supposed to get married, about how you're supposed to find a mate, what that should look like, about how you're supposed to have a job and a career, it just doesn't, like I said before, it doesn't leave room for who you really are. And I think our society could be so much better if it would allow for everybody to be able to do fully what they could. Instead, we've got geniuses who are bagging your groceries, and that's not a bad thing. I'm sure they're very good at, spatial, movement
spatial awareness,
and filling things up.
I kill it in Tetris.
Right. How things work. And I think that's important. But what a wasted cause, because what if that guy was the person that we could ask when they design your car and they forget to put the cup holder in the right place or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, there are real jobs for that dude.
I think if you did your tambourine playing while nude.
Mm-hmm. With children.
Well, no. Now she's not an artist. She's a producer.
Sorry, we could.
I'm just going to be straight up. I have mad respect for anybody who can be naked and not be weirded out by it. Like, what is that like to go in there and disrobe? And obviously it's not nasty, it's not sexual, it's not you're a whore, but what is it like to actually just sit there and have people sketch you?
Well, I gotta tell you, I grew up in a naked home, so being naked at home is common for me anyway. Like, I'm not uncomfortable being naked. But to have an audience there, and especially in a kind of, an academic setting is where I started. And so it is weird. I mean, you've got 30 people. Sometimes they're 18. Most of the time they're guys, not only, but, and really the arts programs tend to have they do attract a lot of women. But yeah, you're full on naked. And so you're thinking about the things that everybody thinks about. Oh my God, am I sitting right? Oh my God, can you see my dimples? Oh my God, my back fat.
Right.
All that junk goes through your mind. But the coolest part about it and what the things you just said, it's not sexual. And so in that regard, you're not there to be looked at like that. You're thinking then, if you're doing it as a professional, like I do, you're thinking then, about how actually the back fat provides some shadow. And now they have something to draw because you're providing the lighting, and where the lighting is. How are you sitting? Is there a curve to what you're doing, especially if it's like a painting group or a sketching group? Then the pose becomes very important because it needs to fill up a certain amount of space or challenge the artist in a certain way. If it's a sculptural, when I model for sculptors, that's a little bit different because then you're on a pedestal sometimes that turns. So the pose might last a little bit longer, but they're turning you because they have to get all the way around you.
Uh-huh.
And so there's those kinds of things that you're considering, is it more sculptural? Is it going to be easy? Standing poses, for example, are harder for someone that's trying to sculpt you with clay than somebody that's just sketching you out. So you think about those kinds of things. You think about what, not what you look like. It's not fashion photography, it's not that kind of modeling. That takes my mind out of it. And truly, it's very meditative and contemplative. It gives me the chance to stay still, Your breathing is important. You do little micro shifts because when you sit down in the pose, you didn't realize that your leg was going to fall asleep. And so you're trying to, things that wouldn't mess up the artist, depending on if they're drawing your toes.
Mm-hmm.
You can't change the whole thing, but yeah, it gets you really conscious on a cellular level almost to kind of do these little micro movements that kind of, to strengthen the pose, but also strengthen the character, I think. I mean, not to get too big, but I think that's true. It takes you way out of your head. You're no longer thinking about, your thighs and how big your thighs might look. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're just thinking, I'm going to give you contrast. What is the term? Oh,
I don't know. I think I need to learn it.
No, it's about the juxtaposition of black and white and shadowing and shading.
Right. There's the elements of art. Well, I learned this, sitting in art classes and listening, stealing knowledge. There's form. That's part of it. There's the shading and the hue. That's part of it. Especially if you're doing color.
Chiaroscuro.
Oh, it's a Greek word. Chiaro, and I can't say it right now. Chiaroscuro or something like that.
Chiaroscuro.
Yeah.
Chiaroscuro. It's like you become this just emissary of your muse, basically, when you're there, right? You're just.
Thank you for saying that. That's what I used to say, and I quit saying it because people didn't believe me.
They just
but
stupid. They stupid. No, because. But that's.
Well, yeah, and I think that's an important element that is totally. I mean, if you think art is not important, think about somebody that just wants to help you do your art or is there just to support the artist. I mean, that's, again, it's pretty underappreciated, but it's exactly what the passion is about and what should be about anyway. Even people that think they're chasing passion when they're getting the best paying job, they think they're chasing passion, but they're not. They're chasing a dollar, they're chasing an end result, but it's the journey. It's always about the journey. It's always about how you get there. What you're doing while you're sitting there is way more important than what that picture looks like when it's done.
Yeah. We don't really value the contributions that we're making to one another at the same time that we are making contributions to our society.
Right. We see them as separate things. If our only job was to make ourselves the best we could be, and there was an outlet for it, that's the key, I think. If there was an outlet for it, then you could. But I know some of my friends that have to have a full-time job just to support what their real passion is. Well, just really doing what our passion was, no matter what it paid, but everyone was taken care of. I know that sounds like socialist propaganda, but whatever you need to call it, to make it so that there's enough in this world for everybody. And I just feel like because some want more and only more of the one thing, and they have most of us tricked into thinking we want it too, that's what everybody's going toward, and it leaves the rest of us with little support, and there's plenty out there.
Yeah. Plus, our values are off. I mean,
yeah, right.
I don't mean to sound so hippy-dippy, but I mean, that's what it's all about. Like, even if you spend 35, 40 years chasing after what you think is of value, what are you actually accomplishing if you're leaving the earth and all you did was administrative crap? And basically, you messed over other people because your corporate structure was set that you had to go out there and eviscerate. You were a shark, not a human.
Right. And an unsatisfied shark, if I can just say, because there's fish to eat all day long. When you say values, I think that is huge. Bringing it back to the children, when I work with the kids, some of them are younger, like the 5 and 6 year olds. They have some of them have an allowance. They don't all, but they love to brag about how much money they have, but they don't even know. They don't know what money is. They don't know. So someone will say, I have $200, but they don't understand the value of what that means. Or they'll say, somebody said, I have over 1,000. Ooh, well, you don't. A, you don't. And B, if you did, you didn't earn it, so you don't really know the value of what money is. So they hear and they get somehow that money is important, but they don't know why. I think that transcends a lot of what we're talking about. That's a kind of this overarching thing when you said that we have very few values that support humanity. It's about that. We have this end result in mind. Money is important. A perfect relationship is important. But if you don't have the value of it, then you don't know what that means anyway. So what are you chasing? You're spending a lot of time and energy running around and doing what you think you're supposed to be doing to get that end result, but it's not even your end result, know?
You're chasing ghosts. Chasing ghosts.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Dude, yeah.
went and got some play money. They play store, kid directed. I see them wanting to do that. We're going to go buy some fake money. We're going to talk about it. Because they're playing, here's my bouncy ball. It cost $1 billion. So then they make $1 billion bills. And I'm thinking, okay, well, in real life, that's not how much it costs. And if you think that it's valuable because you like it, then let's talk about what that real value is. Because if you really do have $200 in the bank, then when you have to start depleting it for all those things you think are so valuable, and then you end up having only $50 in the bank, how does that feel different? Well, you have to give something, that feeling of sacrifice, that feeling of actually giving the real exchange, the real economy is that you give something to get something back. And it might be energetic, it might, whatever your resources are, it's not always money. I think that's huge. That's where you really understand the value of something. What do I have to give? And what does that feel like to give it? I earned this money. I work for this money. Now I know I'm working for something. That's a goal.
So according to the official visitor's guide of Fayetteville, Arkansas, I'm supposed to come by and meet you and check out your village.
Well, that's probably not true. The official visitor's guide is just a piece of my art that I did that my mom bought. I love that she loaned it to me to take the picture for the article. And so yes, and I am affiliated with a new gallery called the Phoenix with an F, and it's wonderful because they are rising again. It's these group of artists that have done this and come back and researched several times. And so, yes, I'm a part of that, and I do show art there sometimes at other local galleries. I have an art show coming up, in fact, in May. But
Plug.
But the little village is separate from that. I read tarot cards. That's what I really would love to be doing, is more spiritual work. Not quite the market for it, but I don't have like a place. You can't come to the village, Sorry, closed. You can't come to the village. We're exclusive that way.
You are disallowed.
That's what I love about that program. They do go out into the world. That's the idea. How do I interact with people? How do I order my own food? How do I talk to somebody that I don't know? Not strangers again, not strangers, but, how do I include someone who's new to our group or something like that? Or how to make introductions. I know, social stuff, social skills that are practical. That is separate from the art, which, you can go see at certain places at certain times, but right now that gallery's not even open yet. They're opening next month, I think. And then the tarot cards I do by appointment. See, I'm hard to catch. I'm even saying it, I'm winded just thinking about it. Oh yeah.
You're like, busy. I don't have time for this interview. I got to get off the phone. I need to know about you and squirrels, Lisa Jo. What's up?
It started with a very particular incident in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was 1992 spring. I love to go into public spaces like big parks and find a little corner. I brought some books and some snacks or whatever, and I'm laying there reading a book, probably a little high, I don't know, and hanging out, and you see squirrels, and there's wildlife everywhere, which I appreciate. There was one little squirrel that was really active and kind of getting close. But in parks, that's common, right? I mean, they're pretty tame.
Sure.
When people think cute, I've come from that place, but this one in particular was getting close and would run away and getting close and run away. And then I realized there were like 3 of them kind of in the same general area doing the same thing. I started looking around. I sat up and looked around, and then all of a sudden there's 10. And then I look up and I look around. They're behind me, and they're in the trees over my head. Like they've all sort of swarmed in. They clearly have some secret language or something, way to communicate. Over here, free game. And so here I am sitting surrounded by squirrels overhead in front of me. And then that little bossy one, the first one, comes running up, and then he'd run away, and he kept getting closer every time. So you clap at him, tell him to get away, kind of stood up a little bit, and they back off for a second, but they're everywhere. There's at last count, no shit, 27 of them.
Oh gosh.
Yes, it is totally intimidating. They fucking ran me out of the park. That's how it worked out. Because they wanted my popcorn or whatever it was I even had. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? So after that incident, I became more aware of it. I've always lived in college towns, right? And so campuses are breeding grounds for this kind of entitlement because people throw away
Squirrel entitlement.
Food. They're like, there's no predators. Who's going to get them? Everybody thinks they're friggin' cute. And it's terrifying. I mean, so I started doing more research online. There are tons of groups. People don't know this. I'm sure it's being suppressed by the Russians or someone. But there are groups of people that have testimonials about being accosted, or like me, nearly accosted by gangs of squirrels. And college campuses are huge like that. A lot of little tourist towns where there's not a lot of, natural predators for sure, but there's tons of human food. They associate people with food providers is basically, I think, is probably the biggest problem.
Mm-hmm.
Some people take them in as pets. That is beyond terrifying to me to think about, that people would bring something like that into their home on purpose.
It's like throwing
I've seen these videos, but
yeah.
now with YouTube, you can see that it's everywhere. They jump out at you. I mean, I saw one do it, and the kids I work with all know I don't even call it phobia. It's not a fear. Fear makes it sound like it's, phobia seems like it's irrational. This is not irrational. I've got proof. I've got documentation. I've got several memories of it. There was one that jumped out of a garbage can, and it was like, a city garbage can, and so it was covered, and so when it launched itself out onto the square, it almost landed on a lady. She didn't know, so of course she's probably one of those that thinks they're cute. Had that motherfucker landed on her, my guess is she would not think that they're so friggin' cute.
No, they're like rats.
Anyway,
they're rodents. Aren't they rodents?
The garbage can.
Aren't they like literal rodents?
Oh, they're definitely rodents, yes. Yeah. They're in the rodent family, like rabbits. Sure, rabbits are cute. They're not, but I mean, I don't know if you've seen a rabbit attack something, but rabbits can be pretty ferocious too. They're a little bit more timid. They live on the ground. Rabbits aren't falling on you from trees. That happens. Squirrels fall on you from trees. That happens. Oh, they're just horrible. I mean, I just can't even. And it's partly because they are so bold or something. They're just like, oh, whatever. Have you seen them in traffic? They would cause wrecks. I mean, they are a menace. They are a total menace, and I don't care where you live. And so homeowners, I have some friends of mine that have come to my side because they've had them families and gangs of swarms of squirrels moving into their home. They'll live in your attic or whatever. They'll tear up your shit. Terrible.
I've lived with guys. They do the same. I mean, like, what's the diff?
Again, rodents, we can do.
This squirrel's got a knife. No, it's not a phobia, though. I don't think I'm not a therapist. What the heck do I know? But I don't think this is a phobia so much as an awareness. Right. You have a squirrel awareness.
Public service, if you would ask me. If you ask me.
PSA. Lisa Jo Outlaw says, avoid the squirrels.
Good luck, though. They really are everywhere. They really are everywhere. I've recently heard about this, I guess there's been an outbreak. Now, granted, raccoons are not rodents. They're from a different family of animals. Equally terrifying when they act like squirrels. And here's the thing. These guys in Youngstown, Ohio, I think, there's a group of raccoons that have been infected with distemper. I think it's distemper. And they have been walking around like zombies. I guess distemper means that you can only walk in circles. The raccoons that are normally nocturnal are out during the daytime. And they're attacking people. I hate to laugh about it, but I'm just like, so you think squirrels are nice, but then I'm saying it could happen to you. It could happen to you.
It's just the zombie apocalypse is coming, and it's going to be from your trash can.
Right. I don't know. It makes me laugh. I don't know.
No, it's fun. It's fun. It's fun. Squirrels obviously ain't nothing to play with, but all things considered, I'd rather that than a thermonuclear war.
Definitely easier to clean up the carcass, for sure. Definitely.
You're terrific, Lisa Jo Outlaw. Thank you so very much for what you're doing to help kids and your community, and also thanks for the great artwork that you are creating for humans, other humans.
Well, thank you for this, because I think you're amazing and what you do is amazing, and I am honored to be part of this. Thank you.
Well, I say we should smoke a joint.
I say right on. Lisa Power.
Yay! Us, the Jennifers and Keishas.
Well, Lisa is a cool name. You can't help that.
Well, you know, like, it's us and the Jennifers and the Keishas. We're going to take over the old folks' homes, girl. The 70s. Thanks, y'all, for listening. Please come back to next WOMENACE Wednesday. You can find me on my website, lisalandry.com. And if you sign up for my newsletter, you will receive a free audio download. Shout out, Ari. I love you, little boo-boo.